Hey, Larry here. Acts 29 today, the journey. Coming to you from cloudy world headquarters in Chiang Mai, Thailand. I'd like to welcome all the viewers from Thailand and around the world to this edition. So this is we're switching gears here a little bit during the week, and so I'm doing just what we kind of call random nuggets. These are just little things that I have written down or recorded in my phone, just things that the Holy Spirit dropped into my spirit at one time or another during prayer or just doing whatever. That's it's the wonderful thing about praying in the Spirit, is because you're praying out these mysteries and secrets to God, not for His benefit, but for yours. And then you never know when the download's going to come, and it's going to drop into your spirit, and you'll bring it up into your mind, and you'll get the picture of something, the revelation of something that He's been working with you on or whatever. And it might take you days, weeks, months to put it into words. But these are just some of those kind of things. So I just want to say this about that. Through the years of, church life, I have come to so appreciate the people that are real people, not the actors, that try to make everything they've ever done in their whole life has been perfect. They've never had a bad day. Everything, they've just had their best life now, and everything is so wonderful. And they got the Hollywood smile and the shoes and the big screen skinny jeans and smoke machines and all the props, which I don't need. I left all that stuff many years ago, and I just appreciate the real people, just real people, and they're not trying to be somebody they're not. They're not trying to, whatever. And so a lot of people just aren't real, and that's hard to deal with. So anyway, I just threw that out there for what it's worth. So this is a little something that was dropped into my spirit at some time or another, and these are just things that just come in, and I write them down, because if I don't write them down, I'll lose them. You can have a thought that God drops into your spirit, and you're thinking, oh man, I'll never forget that. and you put it in your mind, okay, this is what he said. And 10 minutes later, it's gone. It's gone. And you may get it back and you may not for a while, if ever. So I'm quick now to write it in my notes or put it in the audio thing on my phone so that I don't forget it, because these are important things that he's trying to get across. So this first one, he was talking about putting on Christ. Putting on Christ. And that always kind of, how do you put on Christ? But as I meditated on that, putting on, well, it's like putting on your shirt, right? Putting on your clothes. And it has to do with identity. It has to do with identity. If I put on the police uniform and I go out in public, people know me by what I have on. My identity is a policeman. And they can tell that by what? By what I have put on. And there's many different professions where you put on the uniform, the clothes that go with that profession, and so you know who's who. But putting on Christ, of course, you're not physically putting on something. And I know people wear all kinds of religious stuff. And I used to think that everybody that had a cross around their neck had to be a Christian, right? So to put on Christ is to put who he is, how he does, what he does, righteousness, holiness, purity, all that, we're putting on. And so rather than it be shown in a physical uniform, it's shown from an inward condition of the heart. And as we transform that image and likeness of Christ on the inside, as that grows in us and we become more like him, it affects our soul, mind, will, emotions, intellect, and then it comes all the way out through the body, affects our body and beyond our body. And then people can actually see fruit in our lives. What do we do? How do we do it? Would we have joy, peace, understanding, walk in any kind of love at all? What are the fruits of this putting on of Christ and putting off the outer man, the old man? So we put off and we put on. That's a transformation process. And I'll just tell you this little story that really helped me to see this, and it happened in my own life. I was working at a truck driving school. They trained people to be semi-truck drivers. And I was a road trainer. So on my jacket, it had the name of the school, then it had Larry, road instructor. And so I would take the people that came in, no matter how young or old they were, as long as they were in the limits of the law, and then I would take them out in a truck, semi-truck with a trailer, and teach them how to start it, all the stuff, and teach them how to shift, And then eventually we'd get out on the highway and learn to drive the big rig on the highway. Don't ask me why I did that. That was a pretty terrifying job for much of it. These people out on the highway in a big truck that they'd never driven, you know, in those conditions before, or anything that big. I remember one time she was a grandma. I don't know, she was in her 60s, middle 60s, whatever, and she was the oldest one I remember having in my group. There was usually 4 in a group in the truck, because we had a sleeper so they could sit back there and watch. So we were sitting in the truck getting ready to go to the shifting range. It was just a deserted piece of road that we could practice shifting gears. And this lady was in the right seat, and I was in the driver's seat, gonna take us to the shifting range. And we were sitting in the truck, and I was going over the shifter, and you know how we went from under to over. So we had I think it was like a 8-speed or 10-speed, whatever it was. And when I explained kind of the basics, the lady looked at the shifter and she said, well, now what is that again? What is that? The stick shift. And I was like, this is going to be a long day, brother man. So anyway, I was at the school teaching, and I worked in the yard too, and taught how to back up the trailer and all that. Well, then there was a major trucking company across the river from Portland in Vancouver, Washington, where I live, and they got in contact with the school, and so I ended up going there as a road instructor. And then we had a director of training, 1 road instructor or 2, and then we were teaching they were hiring people that didn't have a commercial driver's license, and they put them through our course, and the ones that graduated then would have a job with this company. Well, after a period of time, the director of training, he had a bad back, and so he came to me one day and he said, look, I gotta go have surgery on my back, and the boss, the owner of the company, said he wants you to be the director of training, because I don't know how long I'm gonna be out. And I was like, well, wait a minute. You want me to be the director of training? I have no idea of what you do. I don't know, I have any idea of anything about being a director of training. Okay, so forget it. I'm not gonna be a director of training. He said, yeah, you're gonna be the director of training. So the next day he came in and talked to me about it again. And I said, no, he said, look, I talked to the boss, the owner, you know him, I know him. He said, if you're not gonna be the director, then you're gonna have to find another job. So, I didn't really say anything, but I kind of figured out that maybe something was going to happen that I didn't want to happen. And because I didn't want to change. See, my identity was on the road with the truck and new students, and in the yard backing up, and that's what I did. That was my identity. And I didn't want to change because I was comfortable. And then the next day, this guy comes in, the director of training, and I'd known him for a long time. And he came in and he had this plastic thing with a hanger and a brand new jacket. And he took the jacket out and he said, here's your new jacket. And I looked at the jacket and it said, Larry, Director of Training. I'm like, oh my word. And and then he just, he showed me around what he did and all that. Well, the time came when he left, and there was a new class coming in to the school, and so I was in his office, the director of training office. He was gone, that was mine, and I was really struggling with this new identity, and it was tough, but it was becoming fastly a reality, whether I liked it or not. And so I still had on the old jacket, and it was time to go home. It was quitting time, after quitting time. And I was standing in the office by myself, and I took off the old jacket, my old identity, and I hung it up on the tree, and I reluctantly picked up the new jacket and put it on. And then I walked into the bathroom there was just off of my office, and I looked in the mirror and I said, now I'd like to introduce to you the director of training here, Larry Beck. And when I said that, it was like, oh, okay. I'm the director of training. That's who I am. I am now the director of training. This new class, they don't know who I am. They don't know how long I've been here. They don't know that I'm the new director of training. They don't know anything. I'm being introduced as the director of training, and that's who I am now. I am the director of training. I'm no longer a road instructor. I'm the director of training. And I walked out of the office, and that's like who I was. My identity changed. I was completely transformed by putting off the old and putting on the new. That was always something that God used for a picture for me. So that was just an interesting story. Now, I want to talk about illusions for a minute, because illusions are very strong. An illusion is a very strong thing, okay? Because it's not reality, it's an illusion, something that's not real. And that's a very strong thing. It's like a fantasy. And we know there's political leaders, and most of them know that people want to believe in a fantasy illusion. Now, whether they really believe that or not, I don't know. But that's the way they operate, because they're always throwing out illusions. Well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. So they paint an illusion, a promise, a fantasy. And they do that because it is an escape from reality. Reality is truth. Truth is reality. Thy word is truth. God's word is reality. Okay, that's the only reality there is. So why do people want to escape from reality, the truth? Because reality is truth, and truth requires change. See? So, I, like everybody else, have had those times in life when you didn't really want to be confronted with change because of the truth, because we were comfortable where we are doing what we're doing. So I'm on the beach in Southern California, a hippie having my best life now, and then I'm confronted with truth. I got tired of the whole thing that I was doing and all the parties and rock concerts and blah, blah, blah. And so to kind of escape that from the place I was living on the beach, I'd go down to the beach, watch the sunsets, and you've heard the story. But I'm confronted there with truth. Truth that what I see out there did not come from the seen world, it came from the unseen world. And so the big revelation was, if man didn't make this, and obviously he didn't, then who did? See, I was confronted with truth. And so man now is out of the picture. The myth and theory of evolution is so far-fetched that I could never have enough faith to ever believe that. So that nonsense was totally out of the picture. So then that leaves door number 3. What else is there? Well, God. There has to be a God. So now I'm confronted with the truth that there is a God. So now I have to make a decision. When confronted with truth, we have to make a decision. Further explore the truth, accept the truth, acknowledge the truth, walk in the truth, believe the truth, or just reject it and throw it out the window and go on. So if there's God, then I thought, well, what about this Jesus guy? He's the Son of God, right? I mean, I'd heard that when I was young. I didn't know anything about it, but if there's a God, and obviously there is, I'm looking right at what he made, created. So then if he has a son, if he's real, well then I'm going to have to deal with that too. And so in my exploration, of course, I find out that Jesus is real too. And he reveals himself to me. He saves me. I get born again and all that, because I was confronted with a truth. And one of the things on the beach that really confronted me was, before I had really believed on Jesus and accepted Jesus, But knowing there was a God, I had the thought, what if these people who believe in God, they're called Christians, and my thought was, what if they're right, and what if I'm the one who's wrong? Well, that blew it up. I'm like, wow, wouldn't that be a trip? Wow. What if they are right and I'm wrong? Wow. Wouldn't that be amazing? The whole world is wrong. And these people over here that believe in God, they're right. That one blew me out of the water, folks. I was not ready for that. And see, just a few truths in these days changed my whole life, my whole identity, my whole future, and my whole eternity. Was all changed just because of the truth. Without a real confrontation with the truth, transformation is not possible. That's why so few Christians have ever experienced spiritual transformation. That's why. Because they have never been so confronted by the truth that requires change that they have actually decided to change to get in agreement with the truth. They don't want to change. They don't want to even be confronted. That's why they don't read the Word. So few Christians read the Word. Most of them have never in their whole life read the Bible through from Genesis to the end of Revelation. Never once. Have never read the New Testament through once, let alone many times. They don't go to the Word of God for themselves because it's confrontational and it hits us in the face with reality that we're going to have to change. See, when Nathan came to David after Bathsheba, and he told him the story about the lamb, the sheep, that the guy took, and David was all upset. He said, this guy deserves to die, and he's going to have to pay back fourfold of that sheep that he took from this poor farmer. That man is going to have to pay back. And Nathan says, you are the man. You are the man. I cannot imagine. Well, I can imagine a little bit because I've been caught in things that I was the man. I was the man. And when it's discovered that you are the man, it's like there's this shock goes through your heart. that, oh, okay, well, that little illusion's over with. I am the man. See? And that's why people don't read the Word, because it hits us because it's truth. It's truth. And any area of our life that we're not walking and living and all that in the truth, then we will be convicted by the truth. That, oh, wow. If I'm going to line up with the truth, then there has to be some change. But I don't want to change because I'm comfortable living outside of that truth. That's why people don't go to the truth, the Word. That's why they don't live there and let the truth live in them. So they're not really free. They're still walking in carnal, under that ceiling of flesh that we're talking about. So they can work for God in that carnal condition through the outer man that Paul called them carnal Christians, still controlled by the fleshly desires, self-will, self-preservation, self-promotion. But when Christians are confronted with truth and submit to the transformation process, they change. They change. And we can get to the point of transformation and change that now God will be able to work through us. Not just us working for God, doing all those things we can do in the natural, and we can work for God and give food, clothes, money, we can build things, and all that we can do in the natural. But we can't heal the cancer. We can't raise the dead. We can't make a crippled man from birth get up and walk. Because that takes the supernatural power of God. Now, those things are of God. We can't naturally pull that off. It takes the supernatural power of God working through us. We provide the natural, God provides the super. And then we have supernatural. So God worked through Jesus. Jesus said, I'm not doing these works. Jesus didn't claim to heal anybody. He said, it's the Father working through me. He does the works. I only do what I hear. I only say what I hear him say. I only do what I see him do. He's doing it. He's the power that works through me by the Spirit. And now Jesus wants to work through us by the Spirit and do what we can't do in our own natural ability. But he needs a transformed person. Now people, even babes, can work in the gifts, and even the gift of healing and miracles and all that, not being spiritually transformed at all. Because God's trying to help people. But that can only last so long, because the untransformation in a life will bring about a fall at some point because of not being transformed and walking in that purity and holiness that God desires us to walk in. So we don't want to just end up working for him, doing things in the natural. Now, back to the illusion, people lost in the desert, they can look out, and I've been in the desert, I've seen it, because the heat waves go up, and you can see a pool of water. But when you get there, it's gone. It's not really water, it's an illusion. It's a mirage. So the devil is not concerned about the Christians having their best life now playing pickleball on the main deck of the cruise ship. He's not concerned about them because they're not doing anything that, upsets his kingdom. But he does keep a low-level demon there, just in case someone figures out that illusion and gets into a lifeboat and lets it down and starts drifting away from the cruise ship. Then the demon sends out the alarm. We have a runner. We have a runner. And no, he's not concerned about Christians going to church every Sunday, the part-timers. Not until they figure it out that the Sunday-only elevator to spiritual maturity is not working, and they will have to take the stairs and start being the church. That requires a change of identity and needs to be done daily. Then you end up having a target on you, and oddly enough, you will lose the majority of people around you, friends, acquaintances, when you start to grow and develop and move closer to spiritual maturity, leaving the outer court. The spiritual children will say, when you start to develop, that you're trying to be holier than them. That's because it's easier to deceive people than to convince them that they've been deceived. Okay, folks, that's enough for right now. Somebody's calling me downstairs. I gotta go check that out. Anyway, we're not fighting for freedom, we're fighting from freedom because we're already free. God loves you, I love you. I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye for now.